All right, thanks a lot for coming, guys. I want to take a little break from the main story we're going to talk about, and I want to talk about this weird little myth, this weird little folktale, if you will, that I heard about recently that I just wanted to see if you guys had heard about this, if you knew anything about it. It's an Appalachian folktale about a Norse deity or warrior called Zeldrick Bludhammre, who came to the woods there at some unknown time in history, and got about to effectively chopping, or I should say smashing down trees with hammer blows. He wanted to show that the hammer was actually a superior tree felling device to anything that anybody in the area may have been using previously.
I'm somewhat of an expert on Appalachian Norse mythology myself. I've heard a little bit about the tree hammering. I think
tree hammering, as it is known locally.
Yeah, what month? I mean, I think it's in February that the traditional festivals of tree felling happen in those parts.
Now, for those, they, I believe, use various blunt instruments, of all sorts of makes and sizes and types, to not just hammers, but large cannonball type objects, or wide flat beams, like you would use for constructing a house, for example, or even just solidly filled sacks of iron shot swung around to an attempt to fell the largest tree.
That'd be tough.
The heaviest item.
That'd be tough. I heard it's like a test of manhood for the people there. Blunt force tree felling. And I know that there's some historical significance to this. They believe when Bludhammre himself fell upon the Smoky Mountains, it was what was it? It was.
It was a red day.
Yeah.
Will.
Yeah.
You, I think, may have mentioned that you know a little bit about why he was called Bludhammre.
Well, he would tend to pick up an object like a hammer or a rock. But even if he had like a hammer, he would just hold the hard part of the hammer, like the head of the hammer, in his hands as he thrust it against the trees to break them down, causing his hands to become just so broken up and bloody. But nonetheless, he just keep going, tree after tree. He just keep doing that.
So he would hold a hammer by the weighted end.
By the weighted end.
And by just of the fact that there was no proper handhold, and that this was, rough stone, not meant to be held during impact, he managed to deliver an astounding amount of force through the handle, but at the cost of destroying his hands repeatedly.
That's interesting. I think I heard that. I heard that he would drink blood and become so hammered that he'd be wild with, bloodlust.
I mean, that is kind of where the Appalachian part of the myth comes into play, Sam. Right, where he was infamous for his brews that he would create in the forest using advanced still technology.
His brews?
Yeah, he wouldn't be he was making sort of a moonshine, a mead shine.
I thought he had a big bruise from a hammer.
As he called it, his bark shine. He made it straight out of the tree's bark after he'd cut them down.
Okay.
Smashed them down.
He'd smash them, and then he'd smash down onto the stump of the tree until it created a nice large crevice. He would then fill this with nuts and berries that he found falling off of the trees that he felled, and with that make a very nice brew. Of course, there was a tribe over on the nearby mountain that coveted his brew, and they themselves were they always felled their trees with a ram and teamwork. They don't believe that one person alone should have the power to fell a tree. So,
with blunt force.
With blunt force. Of course, it's got to be blunt force.
Right.
That's what kind of people they are. But they believed in the teamwork and the building of it, and that they hated Bludhammre for thinking that he could just fell any tree with his hammer. They saw it as sacrilege.
And I even also heard that their particular method of blunt force tree felling involved fully uprooting a tree when felled. If the tree were to break at any point, then it was considered a bad tree, and they wouldn't use it for any purpose. Whereas Bludhammre always broke a tree with his great hammer blow and created a flat stump with the amazing force that he was able to slam into the tree with. And they viewed his use of broken trees as a huge offense towards their belief system.
Many stumps to this day are those that were supposedly felled by Bludhammre himself.
See, that's what interests me is when you look at the relics, and there's so many questions. I heard you, and it's so fascinating to get these perspectives and these answers. When I hear of Bludhammre's bruise, and he's, making his pit, and he's putting his berries, and he's making his bruise, and then it's there, and then everyone said, oh, that's Bludhammre's bruise. It's just like, because he bruised the mountain with his hammer. He bruised it, but he's making bruise in the pit. So, why is it called bruise? It's called bruise because he's famous for making bruise. It's not because it's actually a bruise. Though now it looks like a bruise in the mountain, so we call it Bludhammre's bruise.
Right. The location Bludhammre's bruise is the crater,
which he used to make bruise.
It's
right.
a famous spot, tourist attraction, even to this very day.
We don't truly know if it wasn't, if we have to assume that there may be some sort of scientific explanation for anything, but it is still undetermined to this day how these tree stumps could have been turned into such perfect cauldrons.
I mean, it's amazing. Now, there's some speculation as to whether, a drunk miner fell with some, TNT and blew himself up. They say there was no mythical visitation. This didn't happen.
The famous boom of Bludhammre.
Yeah, they're like, it's a hill story. It's a hill story. He was never here. There was just some guy who's drunk. He'd be like, bullshit. I'm not trying to be crude here, but bullshit. We've heard too many stories, too many accounts.
You're saying there's something there.
There's something there. There's people in those mountains. They've lived in those mountains for generations. The natives, they're like, yo, look at this paint. Look at this painting we did. Look at this thing we carved. What is this? And you look at it, and it's like, oh my god, that's Bludhammre. It blows your mind. It's Bludhammre. It looks like a Viking.
They still believe that he will come back and refill the cauldron trees someday.
And they're probably right.
And anyone who were to drink one of those brews would therefore be afforded possibility of entrance into Valhalla in accordance with the Nordic system.
Of course.
People speculate that the Vikings came and they were on the shores of North America long before, what history teaches us as to be first contact. What were they doing? They were looking for Bludhammre.
Of course.
I mean, why else would they be here?
Yeah, no, he was just brewing all over the place.
Yeah, and they wanted his brew. Many people coveted his brew.
I mean, if there's any reason why the warriors of, Norse history didn't end up just taking over the entire world and aren't our overlords today, it's definitely possible that it's because they lost the power of the brew.
So here's a question I'll pose. Bludhammre, was he a god or was he a man? Because here, before we get this going, there is the story of the falling, the shooting star, written in Norse mythology, and they said that when they followed that shooting star towards the horizon, it was because they were looking to locate, a god. A lot of historians say, oh, if he did exist, he was just a guy. He was just a guy who made brews.
See, but I heard about the shooting star, and I heard that many from the area believed that the shooting star is just Bludhammre. He's traveling through the cosmos, hammering. He's flying, going, his hammer in his hands, and propelling it like Thor in order to fly through the heavens. And you can see the sunlight glinting off his hammer every time he passes by.
So he hits the earth, and it gets bruised.
Well, let's hope he doesn't hit the earth.
I think that
hit the earth.
At the speed he's been traveling, in all likelihood, actually coming to a stop on Earth and at the velocity he's built up, for sure, scientifically, would be a catastrophic, global, destructive event.
Right. His hands would be fine, but the Earth, the Earth would be obliterated.
100%. I don't think that there's any scientific evidence that says otherwise.
Yeah. So maybe he's just looking for a way to slow himself down.
Some think that this upcoming test where they're going to destroy an asteroid coming at Earth is actually they're going to try and destroy Zeldrick Bludhammre, and he's coming for us.
Man.
I mean, I don't think there's any denying that that's the most likely possibility.
Exactly.
And
But I mean,
But are they fools to not try to harness the power of Bludhammre in some way, or to unlock the mystery of the brew?
Well, I mean, if you look at the ancient scripture, the ancient writing, it's like, Bludhammre has a heart of like molten lava, and you cannot harness, like he'll burn you to death.
Look, we've all read the Book of Blood, so just skip to the part that matters.
I'm just saying, you can't harness. How would they be thinking they're going to harness Bludhammre? If you've read the Book of Blood, you know you can't harness Bludhammre's power.
But you can always bond with him over Bludhammre's brew.
If we were to unlock the secrets of Bludhammre's brew, imagine the sort of superiority we could establish in this country, in this universe. I think the sky's the limit.
He can bring us all together. He can unite us all.
The brews. He only gives brews to the worthy. He gives bruises, or no. He gives his brews
To the worthy.
to.
He
the
gives
worthy.
bruises
He gives
to
bruises.
the unworthy. We've all read the Book of Blood.
Yeah, I mean, it gets a little.
I know. When we talk about Bludhammre, it fills me up too.
Another
Like it gets hard to talk.
Well, I
a little
mean,
bit.
the verses it's hard. They're like the brews, and I make the brews, and I brews this, and I'm drinking brews, and I got my hammer, but I'm getting hammered. It's very complicated.
As long as we always remember to hail Bludhammre.
of course.
But I think Bludhammre may be evil.
But that's only because you've grown to fear the brew.
And his power, which is the brew.
I do. Maybe that's
You
the
must
most respectful
drink.
way.
You gotta drink the brew.
Drink the brew. You'll be fine, Mr.
Drink-
Burr. Just
drink
drink the
the
brew.
Nobody can drink the brew.
You gotta drink the brew.
We have the brew.
You have the brew?
We got the brew.
The brew's you can't have the brew. If we have the brew, we got some.
Hail Bludhammre.
Hail Bludhammre. This has been the myth of Zeldrick Bludhammre's brew.